It must be 2 o'clock. That means it's time for our daily art share challenge. And this week we have been working on watercolour techniques. Let's see how many we got today. Let me see. Usual technical problems with me. Say hello if you're on. I can't see on my screen the number of people that are watching. Hey, now I can see you. Hi, Judy. Hello, Sue. I hope you're good. You ready for our little birdie today? I'm waiting for my phone to stop going round and round in circles so I can see how many people I've got on. Hey, Linda. How are you? Becky, beautiful day. Hello, Sandra. If any of you guys can tell me how many people we've got on, that would be great, because my phone is refusing to show me what's going on. I'll see, just wait a few more minutes. So we're going to be doing this lovely little bird today, and I'm going to show you another couple of techniques. Oh, might finally have my phone working. This is so frustrating. I just hate technology. I really hate technology. I'm a technophobe. I do my best, but what can I say? No, it still doesn't want to load. So I've no idea how many of you are watching today, but never mind. What's the time now? It's just gone 2 o'clock. So hopefully I've got everybody on and ready. Anyone going to paint along today? That would be cool if you're going to paint along. I'm just going to see if I can see any more information down here. No, not to worry. Hey, Linda. Two Lindas. Hey, Linda and Linda. Hey, Pat. Hey, Karen. Excellent. Hello, Uncle Douglas. Uncle Douglas. Okay, guys, right, I'm going to make a start. Anyone that's going to join will carry on joining as we go. So this is the little picture we're going to be doing today. But as we have been doing this week, we're going to start with some tips and techniques to broaden your knowledge of what you can do and different approaches you can use when working with watercolour. We're going to be using pulling and softening and wetting wet today on our little bird. You know what? I think he would look superb on one of my mugs. So I've got my sheep here today. Can you see them? My sheep going around the mug, a whole row of sheep, really cool. I think he would look pretty nice on one. Hello, Pam. Hey, Margaret. Okay, I'm just going to move our bird to one side. Oh, there's another bird. Move one bird, find another bird. Okay, he's drawn out ready for me to show you some techniques. I'm just going to protect him with some tissue. I don't want to get any marks over him. I want to put some tissue over my board and another sheet of watercolour paper. I had a question today. One of my students had a bit of problem stretching her paper and it was still buckling. It's because you haven't got a strong enough watercolour paper. So when you're looking at buying watercolour paper, I recommend a 300 GSM as a minimum and 140 pound weight. It'll be more like a card and you won't get that buckling when you're stretching your paper. Okay, so let's have a look what we're going to show you today. I just want to do a little bit of a reminder. I did say what colours I posted under today's link, so you can see what colours I would be using. So I'm going to be using rose for the pink. I've got some vermilion some burnt sienna, and some violet. They're the main colours, and a bit of Payne's grey that I'll be using today. So I've just popped those out of the way. Okay, and the brushes I'm using are just my normal round watercolour brush, a little thin one for things like the beak and the eyes, and my my trusted long liner with the nice long brush. I've got some of these coming into stock soon, so bear with me. If you want to buy a rigger brush, then let me know. Okay, so just a couple of things to get us started. I'm just going to wet my brush and I'm going to go into my pale blue here. And I'm just going to make a mark with my brush down on the paper, a nice solid, strong mark. Okay, very simple, wet onto dry. I'm going to do that again, a bit stronger so you can see. I'm just going to go over it so it's nice and strong for the camera. Okay, if you leave this to dry, it will dry with a lovely crisp edge. Okay, perfect for some applications. Other times you want more muted, more softed look. So if you want softer edges, you would work over damp paper. I'm just going to wet this length of paper here. And by the time I get over here, we'll get different amount of water still on the paper. Just holding it up to see the shine, to make sure it's not too puddly. If you're going to work wet in wet, you just want to shine on your paper. You don't want big puddles. And if there's excess water on your paper, just wipe off your brush and soak up any of the excess. Okay, that's fine. So I'm just going to go into my paint again. I'm going to do exactly the same thing, same brush stroke down on the damp paper. And what you'll see is that spread out. Can you see that? Can you see the soft edges and the blurring going on as opposed to the first mark, which stays lovely and crisp? It's working with the water on the paper. It does also depend how much water's on your brush as to how far it's going to spread. So really, you cannot do enough practice with watercolour doing this technique. See how the different amount of water on the brush will also affect what's down on the page. Now, this is drying out now as we come along the edge. So it is softening, but a lot less because there's less water for the paint to go into. This one particularly, I used a bit more water on my brush. And now we're getting over to this side. It's pretty dry. It's almost dried back. So those kind of exercises, seeing what happens depending on how wet your paper is invaluable. You really should spend some time not just cracking on and getting on doing your painting, although it's very exciting to do that, but play along and see what happens, different wetnesses of paper, what happens to your paint. I also recommend, guys, that you do the same thing for every colour in your palette. You do this exercise because different colours react differently. They don't all spread the same amount. So it's worth doing with your paints that you're going to use regularly to get to know them. Okay, now I'm going to talk to you about something called softening. I'm just going to paint down. I'll use this lovely blue. I love this blue. I use this a lot for my skies. Well, the set of paints, I've switched to a different set of paints today, guys. I'm using Van Gogh. It's a little set that I got free, actually, with a subscription, but they are beautiful paints. Okay, so now I'm going back to wet on dry, and I'm just going to paint a band across my paper of colour. Now I'm going to clean my brush. And I'm going to do another band of paint. I'm going to use pink this time. I'm going to leave a gap in between. Band of colour. There we go. So those colours will sit there quite nicely. They won't mingle. They'll just sit separately. And if you want them to join up and have a softer meeting of colours, just take a clean brush with water and take your water down the centre between those two colours. And all you're doing is creating a channel for those colours to start blending. You can tip this around to encourage the colours to move and blend. But the water is allowing that colour to seep out into this section in the middle. So you get nice blurred edges. This is known as softening. You could also soften one edge of this. So if you was doing, I don't know, you're doing a landscape like we did yesterday, and you've got fence posts. The ones up close to us, we want to have a nice sharp edge because they're in focus and they're near to the viewer. The ones that are going further away, you can blur the edges. Just take clean water with your brush. I might have left this too long. It's quite warm today. And I'm just taking the edge, the tip of the brush along that line where the paint is. Yeah, it started to dry out. Started to dry back. But I'm still getting some bleeding and that slightly blurred edge. So rather than, yeah, it's nice and blurred now. So rather than the crisp edge that you get of wet on dry, you've got wet on dry, and then you just add some water just along that edge, just so the tip of the brush touches into it, and you'll get that softening, out of focus kind of look. Fabulous. My phone still won't work, so I still haven't got a clue how many people have joined today. It's annoying that I can't see it on the laptop, but I can't. No, I'm just fiddling. It's not there. I'll just have a sip of my tea before it goes cold. Okay, now, so that's called softening. Be careful because you can also get a back run. I've got a back run here. When I tipped my paper up, I'll hold this really close to the camera. Can you see that back run there? It's actually quite a cool effect and you can use it to your own advantage. Hello, Sally. Welcome along. Oh, 26 now. Great. Thank you, Sally. I'm working completely blind here, so I haven't got a clue. Yeah, so what's happened is, because I put quite a bit of water in the middle and then I tipped it, the water has entered the blue area and it's pushed the pigment up. So I've ended up 30 so far. Excellent, Becky. Thank you. Hello, Nina. So here, can you see how that watercolour has been pushed away by the water? So just be careful. It's also known as blooming or cauliflowering, where you drop too much water and it forces and pushes the watercolour around. So just be careful about that happening, or indeed use it as an effect. That would be really cool along a horizon line. Looks like little trees there. So experiment, have some fun with your watercolours. They're a beautiful medium. Okay, I'm looking for a pencil. Let me go to my trusted pot of tools, see if I can find one of my pencils. I've got too many things in here. Here we go. So now I'm going to talk to you about pulling. I use pulling, P-U-L-L-I-N-G, excuse my dodgy London accent. I'm just going to do a rough circle there in my pencil. And I'm going to show you, pulling is about putting down a very strong amount of pigment, wet onto dry, and then using what's down there with the addition of water to spread it around. And we're going to be doing that in our bird, particularly down this dark side here of the belly. We're going to be putting strong pink or blue or yellow, whatever colour your bird's going to be. And we're going to be using that strong paint to move it around the paper. So let me show you here. I'm going to use this pink again, so what we're going to use later, or I'm going to use later. And I'm going to populate one side of my circle with that strong colour, just over one side. I'm going to wash my brush out. And I'm going to come back to this with a clean brush. I don't want it soaking with water, but it needs to be wet, but not dripping. You understand? And I'm going to go into that colour and I'm going to spread it around. I'm going to pull it. That's what the term means. Pull it around. Just going to go into that dark colour and encourage it out of its comfort zone applying some water because the brush is clean water as I go. I'm wiping off here the excess colour that I picked up because I want this to be like a little marble or a football that you play with. Look at that. So we're going from dark to light with one application of colour. No hard work needed. I'll do it again for you, okay? I know some people say I go too fast, so I'm conscious today not to go too fast. Let me get another circle down. Okay, we'll go again. Into my pink wet brush. Wet on to dry. Take that round the edge of whatever it is that you're doing. It really helps you get the sense of form in a shape. Actually, I want a little bit more than that. I'm going to put a bit more of that strong colour down for the camera, really. There we go. So that side of the circle, get rid of any excess paint. Clean water, not dripping. Go back into that colour to pick up some pigment. And it's mixing with the water that's on your brush. And you're spreading it around. Spread that colour around. Maintain that really strong colour at the edge. Pulling it around to that side. Wiping off the excess colour because I want to leave a little highlight. And remember, for the white in watercolour, we just use the white of the paper. So we get this sparkly little highlight here, and you get this graduated colour from dark through to light. So there you go, pulling. I'm just going to come out of my phone a moment and see if I can go back into Facebook, because I really don't like working blind, not seeing any comments. Sorry if my arm keeps coming across the screen. I'm just trying to see if anyone is commenting. I do love Facebook. It's good for my business, but today it's been a complete pain. I keep getting down to the part where it says visitors post and it won't go any further. Never mind. Okay, so that's pulling. You can also use that for wet in wet. So if I bring my bird back, so that will be my base for the bird's belly here. He's got quite a round belly. And then I'm going to bring some of my cadmium yellow, just bring my paint round so you can see, which is a sort of orangey yellow. And I'm going to drop that in. I'll do it on this one because it's still wet. And now I'm going to be working wet on wet because the paint under here is still wet and I'm dropping more colours into it. So in the instance of our bird, I've got a bit of cadmium yellow coming in with this lovely pink, rose pink. And I'm just working that in, dropping some colour. It has started, it's very warm in here today. I'm going to get a bit more pink actually here because I want these colours to work together. Because that pink and the cadmium will create a lovely rich orange. I'm not going to overwork it. I don't want to pull it around too much. I want to bring those colours in. Now, if I wanted a bit stronger pink under his belly, I'd just drop a bit more of that pink in, just with the tip of my brush. That's all I'm doing, using the tip of the brush to drop that colour in. Okay, I want to show you something that could happen to you and how to fix it. So this one over here, I'm going to go back in and pull a line. Let's say I've just done some wet in wet and I leave it and I go off to work on another area of my bird. And then I come back and I see this hard line that's formed in that paint. Because what I've not done, the paper has started to dry, I've not spotted it, and I've got this line across the belly. You see, everything in that belly is soft and flowing and mottled. There's no hard lines in here. Great if you want a hard line, perfect. Wet onto there, it's damp paper, it's just about to dry and you get a nice crisp line. But in this instance, I come back to my bird. I'm just waiting for this to dry, so I'm waffling on to amuse you all while this dries. I'm going to get my hairdryer on it, guys, just to speed it up and stop my waffling. Okay, so I come back, might even be the next day. I come back and go, my painting's beautiful, but that spoils it. So I'm going to get some more water. This could be a week later or a month later. And I'm just going to lay, it's actually better with a flat edge brush. This, trying to soften a dried line. This is what we're doing. It's a dried line in your work and you want to soften it. A flat brush works better. So I'm just going to take that flat brush along the edge. And it starts to break up the gum. Watercolour has a gum in it. So when you activate that gum, you reactivate the paint. So now I've left that water on it a little while, and now I can spread it around again. And I can lift that out. Some colours are harder than others to reactivate, but you can always reactivate the paint. And look, the hard line is gone. Let's try it up here. So you can use that in the middle of something or on an edge. If you later think, oh, that edge should be softer, let's try it, shall we? Let's put it to the test. So I'm going to take my flat edge brush. You can use your round one if that's all you've got. And come back into that edge with a seesaw motion, just along the edge, to soften that down. Reactivate the gum, reactivate the paint, and soften that down. So look at that side, how crisp it is. And then the side that I've reactivated is softened. Okay, go back to our ball. That's softened. So don't be fooled when people tell you watercolour, it's really hard to work with. If you make a mistake, you're stuck with it. You're not stuck with it, guys. Okay. Remember glazing. Just a quick one before I start painting the bird. Remember we spoke about glazing Monday and Tuesday, and in both our landscapes we used a wash. We let it dry. Always has to be dry before we then put another thin layer of colour over. There is an area in this painting that I would use glazing on. You could use wet in wet in the flowers, or you could glaze to get a more rich colour in some parts of your petals. So put your pink down, make all of the flowers look the same, let it dry, and then introduce another layer of the pink over the top to get a more richness of colour. In those places, you don't want every flower to be uniformed and the same. You want variation in the colours, in the petals. And what I've done in the middle of the flower here is work wet in wet. So the cadmium yellow that I dropped in the centre of the flower, I popped that in whilst the pink was there. And I've got this lovely orange bleed just around the edges. So those are the techniques we're going to play with. So I'll put that to one side. I'll have a sip of my tea. I'll reveal our next bird, same bird, and then we'll get on painting him. And my phone still isn't working, so I still don't know how many people I'm talking to. How annoying. Let me just scroll up here just in case I can see it at the top. No, never mind. I'll see at the end when I play it back. Okay, right, let's make a start then. So I'm going to paint this bird quite lightly, and I'm going to start with that lovely belly. I love that belly. So it's pretty much what you've just seen me do with our exercise. So I'm just going to take this bright pink, rose pink, and I'm going to come along the edge of the belly, along the edge of the wings there. Strong colour. Wash my brush off. Just like I've just demonstrated. This time I'm taking the water. I want to make sure I've got some water around here as before I go into that pink. Into the pink. Picking up that colour and working it across the bird. Come round this side. She's very light in the middle. I think she's a girl, given that she's pink. She's very light in the middle. If you find you've got too much paint, just wipe it off on your tissue and carry on spreading that colour around. I want it really light in the middle, a bit darker in the underbelly, but light around this centre section. So I'll wash my brush off again, and I'm just spreading out what little colour there is left to take it really light. Remember, dark to light with watercolour is all about how diluted the paint is. So we're diluting this paint there and then on the paper. Okay, now I want to drop some of my oranges in, my yellow, so yellow cadmium, and it will make an orange because it's mixing with the pink. And I'm going to drop some of that just with the tip of my brush, just tapping it. Tap in, tap, tap. Tap that colour on where you want to see that colour. There we go. And we'll get this lovely mottled effect. Wet into wet, wet paint onto wet paper. Let the colours mix. Oops, I've just stuck my finger on it. Put a bit more yellow there. How silly. I'm going to spread this yellow around in the same way that I did with the pink. I'm going to come back with some water into this yellow, dilute it a bit and spread it around. There we go. I had a little bit of a backwash there. I used slightly too much water. It's fine if you spot it. Then here. Slightly too much water, Eunice. This is quite a new brush. I'm not used to it. I've switched brushes recently and it holds a lot more water. You'll find that different quality brushes. A really good watercolour brush will hold a lot of water. And my old one was a bit old and tired. And now I've switched to a new one. I'm getting used to how much water is in the barrel. So I'm just playing around, wet in wet, seeing where I want to add a bit more strength of colour here. Now, have a look here. I'm starting to get a line. Can you see that in that belly, the yellow? So just look out for that happening. It's better to solve it at this stage than later. So I'm just going to take some clean water and soften that down. There we go. It's gone. We're fine. We've saved. Okay. I'm going to drop a little bit more stronger pink over here. Just where you want it. Use a reference photo or just do your imaginary little bird. I don't think this bird really exists. I think it's just in my head. There we go. I like that. Hopefully you like it too. My phone's now turned itself off. Oh, I really should give up with it, shouldn't I? I'm persistent. Right, so that's his body. Now, what else must we think about? We must remember not to paint his wing next to his belly because his belly is still wet. What happens when you paint next to something that's still wet? It bleeds. Which is fine if that's what you want, but in this case I want his wings and his tail feathers to stay separate. I'm not so worried about his head though, if I get a bit of a bleed round here. So I'm going to move on to his head. And I'm going to use a little bit of violet. I don't want this too dark, so I'm just taking, this is just wet on dry. No softening, just putting a glaze, a wash of colour over his head. This very soft violet colour, so all it is watered down to get that really pale. And then in places I'm going to take it a bit stronger. So I'm going to take a bit more of this violet on the top of the head and a little bit of pink, just to pick up and pull through from what's happening down here. So there's some cohesion. So wet into wet now. So I put my wash down and now I'm just playing and dropping colours into it, having some fun. Now my favourite colour of all time is Payne's Grey. I just love Payne's Grey. It's a really soft grey. Look at this. That's Payne's Grey. Beautiful. You can mix your own. You don't have to use a colour, but it happens to be in my watercolour set already. So whilst this is still damp, I'm going to bring in these shadow areas or these shapes around the lower half of the face. Come right up next to the eye. And just tapping. Are you noticing the method that I'm using to paint this down? It's not necessarily brush strokes as such, but more just touching the paper, tapping it on, and in places I'll then pull it and move it around. Bring that right up to meet the chest. Quite like it if that bled a little bit actually. If not, it'll be like a glaze. There we go. So that's his head in. I'm going to darken that later, but I'm going to do that with a series of glazing. I'll drop a little bit more pigment there. So you could do it wet in wet, or you could come back and give it another layer. Right, I'm just coming up the side of his beak here. Oh, look at that. That was strong colour. Very strong colour. I'm just going to move to my smaller brush because I'm working in more fiddly areas. And just like we did with the pink, that strong colour, I'm not going to waste it and lift it out. I'm going to pull it. See, this pulling technique, I use it all the time. I guess I don't even realise that it's a technique. It's just become habit. I'll put a colour down and I'll use that paint to move it around. But it's good for you guys to know it is actually, it does have a name. It has a name. Okay, now I'm going to bring this light colour with my tiny brush along his beak. I don't mind if it bleeds into his face because it's the same colour. So that's the lighter. I should have left a little bit of white. I've missed that. I'm going to try and pull it out. Trembling a bit today. Haven't had enough tea. Okay, there's a highlight here on his beak that I forgot about, but I've just pulled that back out again. Remember to lifting out. You can just use a damp brush like a sponge and lift back out. Hey, there's 25 of you. I've finally got it on my screen. Oh, it's only taken 31 minutes for me to see who's watching. Oh, my word. Anyway, it's happened. I'm so excited. Okay, now I want his beak to dry back because I don't want to bring that stronger grey into his beak because it will bleed, yeah? Remember, don't use black and white to make grey. You can use your black if you want and water it down. I don't like it very much. So use brown and your dark blue, dark brown, and mix your own grey. Let me, we did this the other day, but I'll just show you again whilst I wait for that to dry. So brown. This one's not a particularly dark brown that I've got in this set. It's more of a burnt sienna. And my dark blue, which I haven't got much left of. In together. That's a beautiful one, actually. Look at that grey. Very similar to Payne's grey. Please don't use black and white. Please. As soon as you put white in your watercolour, it goes opaque. So you're wasting your time. Brown and blue. Yeah? Thank you. Okay. That's the nag of the day over. Right. I'm going to move down to his tail feathers now. Give his head a little chance to dry out. I've got a little bit of a line forming there, so I'm just going to soften it. These terms will become second nature. It's a term that describes exactly what you're doing, really. Okay, his tail feathers then, and this wing feather. I'm going to use. I'm going to start off with with brown. Pop it in my little mixing tray there so you can see it. Turn it around. I'm going to water it down. I don't want it too strong. And I bring this brown. It's a burnt sienna brown, so it's sort of an orangey brown, into this feather and come up his wing. Now that's too brown for me. I want it as a base. I'm just going to make it a little bit darker. I'm using way too much water today, guys. There we go. Up that wing. And I'm going to drop some vermilion into that. Vermilion is this bright red, orangey red. Here, vermilion. You've got it in the tube as well, but I'm using the one in my Van Gogh set. Because I want this stronger and brighter to match the rest of my bird. So I'm just going to pull this vermilion in beside this feather. Come up here, up his shoulder. Okay, now that went down quite strong again. I can dry my brush off, use it damp like a sponge, and I'm just going to spread that out again. I'm pulling yet again. You can see how vital moving that paint around and pulling it around can be to your work. Okay, now I'm going to go into the Payne's grey or your brown grey mix, your brown and blue mix that you've made. I'm still using my big brush, even though I'm doing fiddly areas, because it's got such a lovely point to it. I'm going to say that and mess up now, you wait and see. So I'm going to come along. I want to do this whilst this is still wet, because I want this Payne's grey to bleed slightly. I'm just using my hand on my board to rest it. My little fingers are on the paper to give me some balance, so I can bring this line along here. I'm going to come down this feather here. There we go. That's quite strong again, so I've wiped my brush off. Soften that. Now I want this to dry with a lovely crisp edge on the outer edge. Okay, I'm going to carry on doing that along the towel feather. Nice and strong. Coming up. And along the edge of his belly there, a little way. I'm going to use what I've put down, spread it. There we go. Can you see how that grey on this side has softened and bled with the colours that I've already put down? I want the same to happen here, down this towel feather. So I'm just going to agitate it and pull that Payne's grey, not too wet, just a little bit of water to encourage it to mix with those vermilion and the brown that I put down. There we go. This is such a fun picture to do. Okay, towel feather again. Now this towel feather is a bit lighter, so I'm going to put my strong colour on again and drag it through. Using paint in this way, putting a strong colour on and then diluting it on the paper saves you mixing up all sorts of shades of the same colour in your wells. So you can go on with your strong colour and then just come in with a wet brush and dilute it on the paper. So I'm going to come in with this towel feather here. Just using the tip of the brush. I'm not going to go any further up yet with that because it's going to bleed. This feather's still wet. It's already started to bleed a little bit. So I'm going to leave that and come back to it. In fact, I'm just going to lift that bleed out. There we go, because this feather and this one's in the background and these two are in front. Fabulous. Okay, I'm happy with that. Whilst I'm using my Payne's grey, I'm going to come down his little feet. Doesn't need much, just a hint of colour in his feet. Oh, I've missed his leg out. I'll take my thin brush. I've just realised I've missed his leg out. I'm going to take my Payne's grey again, quite strong now, and turn my board round so I get a good angle and bring his little leg over here and up a bit. And then there's a little claw at the back there. Nice. And then the other side, just add in a bit stronger Payne's grey over there. Just pull it around. Now his little talon's gone over my log. There's a branch that he's sitting on, so I'm just going to spread that out. Remember, you can use your tissue paper to lift off excessive bleeds or water. There we go. There's his little foot sitting on the branch. Okay, so whilst I've got my little brush, where are we going now? We're going to go to his eye. Payne's grey again. This is a more fiddly bit. If you wanted to, you could switch to using a fine liner pen to do the outside of the eye because it is quite tricky. It's quite small. So I'm just going to bring the tip of my brush round. Actually, this is a good job for a rigger brush as well, a small rigger. With your fine brush, just bring the outside of his eye in, and then his pupil. Be sure to keep some areas of white around the eye. And this pupil comes right in this side on the left hand side of the eye, and then you've got a bit of white showing. It's not actually going to be white. I'm going to make it grey in a little while, but for now it's white. But I've made it a bit too big here, so I'm going to lift out that area. Remember, when your paint is wet and you're trying to lift out, you need to keep going over that area with your brush to pick up the paint. Yeah, I want it more that shape. So I went a bit too fat there, but it's fine. No panic. Do not panic. Just think, what did Eunice tell me I could do? Can lift that out. I'm going to take a bit of tissue. Just soak up that excess. There we go. And then back on his face, I said I was going to bring some darker colours in. So I'm going to bring another area of Payne's Grey over the top of where I've worked already to give him his kind of little mask that's going on here. Comes up to the side of his eye. He's quite dark under the beak as well. I'm going to bring Payne's Grey again. Your second layer is always going to look darker because you've got the colour underneath it. So it's like a glaze. I'm just going to bring this Payne's Grey down here. Just soften that line. And I'm going to add another bit of violet up in his head now. I want that a bit stronger. And mix it with a bit of Payne's Grey just to dull it down because that was quite bright. Don't worry about going over the lines either, seriously. Don't worry, just really have some fun with your watercolour. I'm going to bring a bit more pink up here. I'm just changing my mind as I go, just dropping that, creating another layer of wet on top of the last one, and a bit more pink over here. There we go. This area is going to remain quite light, just a little bit of colour. He looks a bit funny. His eye looks a bit odd today. It's because his pupils just bled out. Oh dear. Never mind. It will look better, his eye, once I give it some grey, but I need that pupil to dry first. So the same thing now on his beak. Who's going to be doing this later? Is anyone brave enough to be trying to paint along? I can be quite fast, I'm sorry, but I do try and slow down. So I'm just bringing that Payne's Grey along the beak here, and there's a line that separates the top beak from the bottom there. Another bit of Payne's Grey. The bottom part of his beak's darker than the top. So I'm just bringing that darker colour in. Be really careful. Use the finest brush you've got. And then this top beak, I want to spread and pull that Payne's Grey that I used. And just soften it. I don't want a harsh line. There we go. You can see that? You're doing it live, Judy. Oh, Mark, you are really late. God, what have you been doing today? Sleeping? Making lots of notes, Becky. Great. Remember, you don't have to take the note. You can just watch it again and slow it down and pause it later and paint along. Okay. I'm going to leave. Oh, need to go back to that towel feather. Just while I'm still working on the Payne's Grey, I'm just going to make this feather a little bit longer and waffle to give you a chance to catch up. Just come between those feathers there. Look at that. He's cute. Sorry, miss. You're cheeky, Mr. Mark. Okay. Right, I'm going to move on to the twig that he's sitting on. This little branch. And I've kept with all the pastel colours. So if I bring this one back, you can see It's very pink and grey, much like the top of his head actually. And then we've got the pretty pink flowers to bring in. How are we doing for time? 15 minutes to go. See if I can stick to time today. Okay. Not that anyone's watching. This is my time that I set myself to do these challenges and to show you what I'm doing. So I'm just pilling a bit more Payne's Grey. I'm going to put that over my branch. Just wet on to dry along the branch. And then I'm going to bring a bit of that pretty pink, watered down though, very light, very watery. Just touching my brush into the edge of it, dragging that through the Payne's Grey. You see that? Beautiful. I'm really happy when I'm painting birds. I haven't painted birds in ages. Well, I guess the kingfisher. We did a kingfisher class not so long ago. That's always fun. Okay, same thing up here. There's another bit of twig up the top. And there's a little bit attached to this flower here. There we are. And again, I'm going to take my pink, just watered down. Don't want anything. It's nice and watery, pretty little scene. Very pastel. Okay. Now for the pink flowers. Okay, so I'm just going to be fun and loose with these, guys. There's not going to be any time wasted on them because it doesn't need it. They're quite loose flowers. I'm going to start on this one down here. Oops, I got my, just realised I'm using my flat brush. Doesn't matter, you see, you can use any. So I'm just going to come round. I'm going to leave the centre white to pop that yellow, cadmium yellow in later. So these are all going to look the same to begin with. Just put some petals down. One peeping out the other side of this branch. Just going round that petal shape, leaving that gap in the middle. Now you're going to have a couple of choices as to how you deal with these flowers. You can work wet into wet, or you can bring a glaze back, let the flower petals dry, and then just bring a stronger colour over the top. So I'm going to show you both. They'll end up looking the same, similar, just a different way of approaching it. And just bringing these lovely petals round, very simple flower shapes. They all look pretty much the same. A nice mid colour, not too strong, not too weak. Doesn't matter if it's too weak actually, you can just strengthen it. So I don't know why I said that. Okay, some more petals just sticking over this branch. There's another one by his belly here. And then not forgetting these ones at the top. So I'm not using any ink pen in this, but you could, if you wanted to, you could ink round him afterwards. It's an option. Pink. So I'm imagining these flowers are facing away from us. So it's attached to the stalk here, and this is the petal closest to us. Okay, so now I'm going to strengthen these ones. Actually, I'm going to bring my centres in because I want them to bleed a little bit. So I need to work quite quickly. If you're not as quick as I am, don't worry, just do one flower at a time. So I'm going to come back with the yellow cadmium, drop it in the middle, and I want it to mix. So I'm deliberately touching into the pink and reactivating if it started to dry, that pink, because it gives you a lovely orangey colour. I'm going to add some pink up here, some yellow up here as well, just for a bit of interest. There we go. So where the pink was still wet, you're getting this orangey colour come through. Now I'm going to strengthen my flowers and then we're about done. So less water this time, more stronger paint. These ones are still wet, so wet in wet. I'm just going to drop the tip of my brush in places and let that paint mix around with the colour that's already down. You could add another colour in as well. So I've got down here sort of a purple. I'm not sure what colour, where that one came from. I've got a purple colour here as well, sort of pinky purple. So I'm going to drop some of that in some of these petals. So mix your colours up and let them blend wet into wet. So I want these petals to be darker. This one can be darker. Or you can just use the same colour to make it deeper. Mix it up or use the same colour. It really doesn't matter. Just, I keep saying it, have some fun with it. Don't stress. These flowers are the finale. Okay, this petal I want to be closest to us, so I'm going to darken this one. I've pretty much done all these wet in wet now because they were still damp. As I say, if they've dried, don't worry. If they've dried, you're just doing it, but it's a glaze. And this petal back here, a bit pinker. I want these flowers to really pop out. I want them quite strong. Are you loving it, guys? Are you loving today's challenge? You know what? I'm probably getting 6, 7 pictures from you lot a day, that work that you've done for me to see. It's not enough. 23 of you with me still now. I should get 23 pictures of birds over the coming days. So come on. Be fair. I'm sharing with you. You share with me. I love to see them. Brightens my day. So make Eunice a happy girl. Right, I'm going back to the eye. I'm just going to add a little bit of water to activate, make that a bit grayer. There, it's glaringly white. Look forward to trying it later after I've prepped my paper for tomorrow's class. Ah, Sally, yes. Tomorrow evening we've got the dowels, haven't we? My paper's prepped and ready to go. So, okay. I think I'm pretty much there with this little bird. Maybe a bit dark. I could go a bit darker on the head here, up by the beak. Just tweaking really, just having some fun with it. Put that strong colour on and then spread it. Spread it around. Bit of a darker patch this side of the eye. Tap it in, leave it. Maybe darken the beak. I'm going to be brave now with my big brush. Ooh, using the point. See what I'm saying? Could be a great big brush like this, but if you've got a good one that comes to a nice point, you can still do delicate work. Well, I know Pat's watching. Pat loves her rigger brush. I know Pat told me she paints on ceramics, lots of detailed work, and she uses a rigger brush. So yeah, rigger brushes hopefully be in stock later this week, so you can get yourself one and see why I love them so much. I'm just adding a bit more colour here to his head. Don't want to go, do I? Lovely. I'm not sure about this wing. I might add a bit of pink in there as well. There we go. I'm not going to splatter my bird. You could splatter your bird. Oops, thank you, Eunice. Great fun. Learned lots. Will upload my picture shortly. Excellent. Thank you, Judy. Thank you very much. So that's it, guys. That's the end of today's challenge. 55 minutes. So you've learnt pulling, softening. We've spoken about wet and wet. And I really want you to try these exercises to get used to what happens, the different amount of water you've got on your paper. So you do that. Sketching, little bird. Oh, good. I'm just going to bring my camera down. Excuse me today because I've got my hair tied up and yeah, I'm a bit dishevelled. I'll turn. So there's one bird. There's another bird. And there's an old bird. So thanks, guys. Thank you very much for watching today. I'm not sure what the subject is tomorrow. I've not made my mind up yet, but I will let you know very soon. And have a great day. See you tomorrow. Thank you.